Hi, everyone. I'm Jim Gibson, your host of this podcast, Drones and Construction, where we explore how drones are revolutionizing the construction industry. And we specifically lean in on the technology that drones utilize to help construction project managers, key stakeholders, and anyone involved in a commercial construction project keep projects on time and on budget using drones and drone tech. Now, if you've been following along from season one, you're going to find a lot of the same great content in season two. The only difference is now we're adding video and we're going to be adding some great industry guests like the one you're going to hear from today. Now, if you're new to drones and construction, stick around. I'm sure you're going to find some great content and hopefully elevate your game in the world of applying drone technology in construction projects. And if you're on the construction side, learn how drone pilots actually operate, how they think, how drones are utilized on your construction projects to get your projects done on time and on budget. One thing, we'd love for you to like and share our podcast, comment. We'll get right back to you. And by the way, if you'd like to be a guest on our podcast, all you need to do is send us a note. Email us at info@aerialdecisions.com and we'll get right back to you. So for now, let's fly high together. Let's have some fun and let's get into drones and construction.
Awesome.
Good to see you, Marcus. How are you doing?
Great to see you, Jim. I'm doing well. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Hey, thanks for joining us on season two of our Drones and Construction podcast. You're our very first guest. And boy, I can not tell you how much I appreciate having you on the show. Folks, if you don't know Marcus, you should. What a great guy. A lot of what we're going to talk about today is not only construction and drones, but what Marcus is doing to give back to the drone community. And that's really a lot of what we want to talk about here is how we're paying it forward, right? Many of our guests are involved in the industry in a monetary way. And the ones that we love to talk to are the ones that continue to find ways to bring up the bottom ranks, bring up the newer people, expose what drone technology can do for not only your career, but also to expose young people in this particular case to the really great advantages of being involved in cutting edge technology, like we talk about on today's show. Marcus is no exception. So, Marcus, as a drone regional support specialist for the Robotics Education Competition and Foundation, and as a commercial pilot yourself, tell us a little bit about your background, how you got started in drones, and specifically what led you to the REC Foundation.
Yeah. Back when I was in community college, I joined the robotics team, and part of our outreach was to present STEM to students and to get them excited about the careers in STEM. And I bought my first drone. It was like a mini drone, and I would take it to these presentations and I would show them to the kids, and they would fall in love with it instantly. And so that's kind of where I got my start in drones, kind of like presenting it and kind of getting involved with students and showing them the power of this technology back in 2015. But later on, as I got more advanced with drones, building my own FPV drone, getting into kind of that realm of soldering, learning to solder and wire and put things together. I had a desire to create my own business and to become a commercial drone pilot. And so kind of like that progression from presenting to students, getting them inspired, and working on an FPV drone myself as a hobby, and then making that transition to wanting to become a commercial drone pilot and taking that risk and purchasing a commercial drone and getting into the drone industry. I've been doing the commercial drone industry since 2020. It's been quite a journey. And what led me to the REC Foundation, or the REC Foundation, was that they are creating their own aerial drone competition that's geared through 5th grade and up. So 5th to 12th grade, they have this competition where it's like a 10-foot by 10-foot square, and they have the students code the drone. They can code it with Python programming and Blockly programming, and they have the drone autonomously go through different gates and land on specific cubes, and they receive points as they go through this competition. And I'm drone regional support specialist for this competition and help calculate the points, help guide the students and troubleshoot what the drone might be doing, why why is it doing this error, how to help them work through all of those problems. So that's just kind of like a brief history on me.
Well, it's fascinating that you're involved in a very technical way with young adults. Are you actually finding that that's a prerequisite, the technical acumen for younger people? Or do you suggest that younger people just simply get involved and don't worry about so much having the technical acumen? A lot of that sort of follows suit when you get into the learning of how to operate drones and some of the more technical aspects of the flight programming, et cetera, because that might scare some people away. And I just want to make sure that we're trying
Yeah.
to advocate for everybody who's interested to get involved and don't let barriers get in the way.
Yeah, I would say the latter. Don't let the technical specifications kind of like deter you from getting involved with drones. The drones that they're using is very student friendly. And if you've heard of like blockly coding, where kind of things are in certain blocks and you can like, create loops, it's very friendly in the way that you code and put the logic together for these robots. The Co-Drone EDU is what they're using, and they've built it in such a way that it's very beginner friendly. So like coding the drone and even piloting the drone is really fun, just using the joysticks. If you're just going to pilot the drone through the course, they make it really easy to get started.
Yeah. So when we're talking about these drones, we're not talking about the traditional off-the-shelf drones that you see in Best Buy, like DJI type drones. These are
No.
drones that are built from the ground up. So they
The-
get that, sort of that origin of how it's built and how
uh,
it operates.
These are pre-made kits. They're micro drones, so they're in like that sub 250-gram category. So they're really small, they're really light, and they have bumpers and guards to them. So these drones that the kids are using, they're smaller and they don't need a Part 107 license to fly them because they are underneath that weight limit. So students code them in the classroom and they're light enough that we're like if it were to bump into your arm, it would like bounce off. So they're actually not recommended to fly them outside of a building. They're really more for like that indoor use case and to help students learn how to code and fly these drones indoors.
Yeah, no commercial applications. For those of you who are listening and are hearing acronyms or terms that may not be familiar to you, especially if you're a construction project manager or you're a key stakeholder in that particular industry, Part 107, and we'll get into this in future episodes, is a very key element for any commercial drone pilot to undertake with the FAA in order to get certified for commercial liability for obviously any type of commercial application. Part 107, which is a rigorous test that the FAA administers in order for you to secure the ability to fly commercially. So we'll clarify a lot of these acronyms and a lot of these terminology as we continue on in our podcast. But when you're talking about these young adults who are getting involved, about what age are they getting involved? And if somebody wanted to get involved in rec, and I know we're specific to the Southern California market here. So for those of you who don't know where we're located, we're actually in the Los Angeles or Southern California market. So much of what we're talking about has to do with highly localized education. But for somebody who's in our area, what would you suggest they do and how old do they need to be?
They recommend that they start out in fifth grade, so around that like 11 or 12 age group for programming these drones. And the Rec Foundation is actually all across the U.S. The Western region, Southern California, kind of like Michigan, Washington, that area is starting to grow in popularity in terms of the amount of competitions we're seeing. But the Rec Foundation is all across the 50 states. So I actually was able to referee a competition in Texas, and I was able to do a virtual live skills demo for them. So the students, they had never programmed the drone before in a competition setting. And our goal with this live skills demo was for me as the referee to count up how many points they would get in their first or second trial runs. So students all across the country can get involved with the Rec Foundation, with having kind of like a teacher or a parent kind of as their sponsor to help them get involved. And so it's a great way for students to really get involved with a growing, burgeoning industry that I think there's definitely a scarcity of pilots who are qualified to do the kind of commercial work that you talk about in your podcast.
Yeah, well, that is one of the key challenges is actually going from sort of a recreational drone flyer to understanding the nuances of the commercial applications. It's not just, as we know, buying a drone and saying, hey, I'm a commercial pilot, Part 107, I'm ready to go to work. There's a lot more to it. And of course, as we evolve our conversations throughout the course of our season 2, we'll talk a lot more about what those challenges are, specifically relating to technology. And it sort of leads me into the next question, which is, as you got more into the commercial applications yourself, I mean, you fly you fly a pretty hardcore rig. Tell us about your rig. Tell us about some of the applications you've flown commercially with that rig.
Yeah, so I fly a DJI Matrice 300. So this is a commercial drone that's very much purpose built for survey and mapping. So that drone is paired with a P1 Zenmuse camera, which is ideal for photogrammetry. So some of the jobs that I've been able to work on through this project is, for example, 3D mapping for drone security, like 2D mapping for just regular observation and trying to find out if there's any changes within a site. And the 3D mapping use case for drone security was an interesting one that I did in LA. Actually, was the first time that an HOA was installing a drone security system. And so I was able to map a community in Bel Air and help with their 3D mapping such that the drone that they would install would be able to monitor this neighborhood on a certain cadence, maybe every 30 minutes, every hour. But in order for that drone to do that flight route and to have it intelligently go through its neighborhood and not hit any trees or things like that, I needed to go in and lay the foundation and do that 3D mapping for them first.
That's really cool. What is the difference between, and what makes the difference between, say, Matrice 300 and a prosumer drone like a DJI Mavic 2 Pro when it comes to mapping? What are the key variables that those who are listening to us, when they're thinking about their rig, need to consider when it comes to the output of the mapping survey?
Right. So I think one of the main differences between a prosumer drone, like you mentioned, the Mavic 2 Pro, or a commercial drone like the Matrice 300, is that the detail in the photogrammetry. So how precise do you need the information or the output to be? Do you need sub-centimeter level accuracy? If you do, then you would go with the commercial Matrice RTK. If you don't need that much accuracy, like sub-centimeter level, then you can get away with using the prosumer drone like the Mavic 2 Pro.
Right. So one of the key variables that you need to ask your client, for example, is what's the use case for the output? Is it to integrate it into your BIM software, for example? Is it to layer into your software for how you're managing your project? Or are you looking for just simple measurements and stockpile and inventory control? Is that
Right.
what your experience has been?
Yes, most definitely. I have customers who don't need that level of accuracy, and they can get away with someone using a Mavic 2 Pro for their project. My drone just happens to have that centimeter level accuracy. And sometimes when I send them the files, they think, oh, wow, this is much better than we were expecting. Thank you. With the Matrice 300 RTK, it has that additional feature of real-time kinematics. So with that one, you have a base station which connects to multiple satellites. And then that base station acts as kind of like a transmitter and a receiver at the same time. It sends signals to the drone as it's in flight, so it can provide GPS corrections to the drone as it's going through its flight path. And so if you need like that ultimate accuracy, you would want that drone paired with a base station using RTK.
So it's a much more sophisticated flight, but it boils down to the level of accuracy that you're looking for. And when you're incorporating that type of data into your BIM software, obviously centimeters matter, right? So
Right.
And the difference is, and by the way, folks, when we're talking about, say, a Mavic 2 Pro, I know that many of you who are very sophisticated pilots out there are going to go, why are you talking about a bird that was, manufactured in 2017? The fact of the matter is some of major software platforms that we even use today still take the Mavic 2 Pro, and some OGs out there will still call on their Mavic 2 Pro, their trusty dusty Mavic 2 Pro, I myself included, to do basic orthomosaics and drone mapping that doesn't require that level of accuracy. So when we need that level of accuracy, we pull in a pilot like Marcus, who comes in, drops the GCPs, and goes to town with all the control mechanisms he's got in that Matrice 300. So just wanted to make sure that there weren't comments in there going, why are you guys talking about these old birds? Well, some of these old birds, like myself, still actually work. Anyway, I digress. Fun stuff. All right. So, Marcus, tell us about, some more of your experiences on projects, specifically in the industry, construction projects, mapping projects that you've had. What's the one that stands out the most? You did mention one earlier in Bel Air. I think that was a key one. Were there any others?
I'd say my first drone project was key for me. It was actually mapping a cemetery, and they actually needed me to go ahead and lay down some ground control points that they had pre-marked. And that was my very first job. I had the base station, walking around the entire cemetery looking for those orange dots to lay down the base station, get those coordinates. And so that was an eye-opener for me, to be able to use the drone in that way, capture those GCPs with my base station. And I had my brother actually help me along with that, lugging that base station around, because it's a lot of equipment to be carrying around. But I'd say that first drone job of mine was very important, kind of get me a good feel of what drone mapping can do, and how commercial drone mapping really is impacting the industry.
Right. So speaking of that, what do you think on the horizon the industry is going to see in terms of an evolution of drone technology? What do you think is new and emerging for the future of drone technology, specifically in construction, infrastructure, utilities? Where do you see that going?
Right. I think as sensors get smaller and better and cheaper and faster, and that combined with the BV loss, kind of beyond visual line of sight, I think those two things combined will allow folks to get an even further application of drones, as drones can fly further than the pilot's visual line of sight, and more automation in that case. So if you're flying a pipeline and you're no longer limited to the pilot's first person point of view and how far he can see that drone, with BV loss, you can get even further down the line and have it come back and not worry about the visual line of sight element. I think the combination of those two things will really expand the use cases that people are currently using drones for today.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I think you combine that with drone in a box, which allows for, say, utility companies to actually store their drones in a chargeable box that actually is based on autonomous flight structures, can lift off and take calculated photogrammetry, images and video of power lines, preventing stuff like what happened up in Liberty. I mean, there's a lot of different applications that I think you're exactly right when you combine drone in a box and BVLOS. And at some point, UTM, where they're going to have to define, if you will, the rules of the road. That's an FAA sort of, let's hope they're not going to kick the can down the road too much further. And I think with the current administration, we're probably going to see a little bit more pressure on trying to get UTM installed within the near future. So you combine those things, and I think the opportunity is limitless for construction, for utilities, pipeline companies, et cetera, gas utilities, et cetera. So good stuff. Let's go back and sort of wrap up with the young adults again, the kids. I mean, again, I think we can't spend enough time on making sure that if you're in that category and you're listening to the show and you're interested in drones and you say, hey, I love what Marcus is doing and I want to do what he does. What do you suggest they do first? I mean, we talked about REC and we talked about the foundation. It's in all 50 states. What other things would you recommend a young, aspiring drone pilot to do first?
Right. I would say definitely look what's in your community. If there's any groups that already have a designated place where they fly drones, that's a great place to start because you can use your community to learn more about drones and how to fly and how to pilot. And then if there's nothing in your community, you can find so many spaces online, YouTube videos, tutorials, pilot networks that you might be able to look on and depend on for learning how to fly a drone. And I think that as more and more students get involved, you're going to see like more students involved with STEM and building, and the amount of competitions that are out there currently for building a drone, like building a drone for first responders in the case of the National Institute of Standards and Technology. That's such a great use case that a student can get into and to try and apply the knowledge that they learn in school. That's an extracurricular activity that will set you apart in so many different ways. So just really looking for a project or a group that you can get a part of in your area is, I'd say, the best way to get started.
Right. I might add that for those of you who are looking for more formal training, and we're not sponsored by UAV Coach, and there's a slew of online education programs that are designed to get you prepared for your Part 107 certification with the FAA. But I've used UAV Coach myself in getting my Part 107 license. Found them to be highly engaging and really great. And remember, 13 years old. Once you get to that age, you can start looking at your official training and start taking the training, see if you like it. And there's no risk, right? One of the things that I wanted to wrap up the podcast with is we like to talk about, hey, what's a good takeaway? What's important to remember here? And number one, without a doubt, drones are a growing industry. We're on the bleeding edge of it right now. There's so much that's to be accomplished in this industry, and it's right for anybody who wants to find a unique pathway to a career. Number two, get out of your comfort zone. If you're not taking risks, if you're not exposing yourself to new opportunities, you're missing out on something that just may be exciting. I never thought I would fall in love with drones. Wasn't type of person to find myself engaged in the drone industry, and I've become so passionate about it. And the idea of paying it forward and making sure that we continue to promote safe and ethical operations of drones, we are all about that on this podcast. So wanted to just leave you with those takeaways. Marcus, last thoughts, comments before we wrap up and conclude season 2, episode 1. Thanks to you.
Yes, of course. I think some final comments that I can make is that I think we're still really just in the beginnings of this drone industry. Maybe we're kind of coming to like the midway point once like BVLOS and kind of UTM get established. But you think about robotics kits and how long it took for robotics kits to enter the classroom. Drone kits are now in the classroom. So that kind of shows you a little bit of the maturity of where it's at. And so if you can think maybe 5, 10 years down the line, these drones are already making an impact today. But as things become more automated, as BVLOS gets written and UTM gets kind of established within the US, you can see how much growth there is in this industry. And there's still so much more left to build. We need young people involved in this industry to help write those UTM kind of standards and protocols. How are all these drones and these larger drones, is which we'll call drone taxis, how are they all going to communicate and make sure they don't hit each other? It's a very complex problem, and we need so many more young people involved. So that's how I'll leave it.
Sage advice for such a young cat. Fantastic. All right. Well, Marcus, thank you for your time, and we really appreciate you joining us on Drones and Construction. And for those of you listening, thank you for spending your time. I know your time is precious, and we've got a lot on our plates, and the fact that you've spent some time and stood with us this whole time, it goes with a great deal of gratitude. So anyway, thanks, Marcus. Everybody, stay tuned for episode 2. More great content coming your way. Don't forget, share our content, leave a comment, let us know how we're doing. Give us some direction in terms of what you want to see. Until next time, Thank you very much and keep flying high.